Good morning. My name is Luke Metzger. I'm the Executive Director of Environment Texas. We're a nonprofit advocate for clean air and water, parks and wildlife, and a livable climate. And I'm joined today by Harris County Attorney Christian Menefee, Representative Aaron Zwiener, Cyrus Reed from the Lone Star Chapter of the Sierra Club, and then shortly we should have John Beard with the Port Arthur Community Action Network. We also, thanks for joining us today, Jose Medina from Public Citizen. We're here today to ask Attorney General Ken Paxton in the state of Texas to move with greater urgency on several high-profile pollution cases to hold polluters accountable and to make the air safe to breathe again. Texas had a rash of high-profile fires and explosions at industrial facilities in 2019, including at the Intercontinental Terminals Company, ITC, and ExxonMobil plants in Harris County, and the TPC plant in Port Neches, spewing dangerous pollutants into surrounding neighborhoods. These events are just a few of the thousands of illegal pollution events that happen every year in Texas at industrial facilities. Unfortunately, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality has a poor track record enforcing the law against such violations, assessing penalties on average in just 3% of cases over the last decade. As a result, in many cases, county officials and even nonprofit groups have had to step up to enforce the laws ourselves. My organization, Environment Texas, together with the Sierra Club, have sued 4 companies, settling in 3 cases and winning a record penalty from a judge in the 4th. But increasingly, we've seen the state preempt local governments and nonprofits in their efforts to hold polluters accountable. In 2019 and early 2020, Attorney General Paxton filed lawsuits for illegal air pollution at petrochemical facilities in Harris and Jefferson counties, largely blocking the ability of county officials and nonprofit groups to do so ourselves. For example, on May 22, 2019, Environment Texas, the Sierra Club, and the Port Arthur Community Action Network notified Valero of plans to sue for more than 600 emissions violations at the company's Port Arthur refinery during the previous 5 years. Shortly before the expiration of a mandated 60-day waiting period, Paxton filed his own suit, preventing us from moving forward with our lawsuit. Recent laws passed by the legislature allow the Attorney General and TCEQ to preempt pollution lawsuits for civil penalties filed by local governments as well, which County Attorney Menefee will speak to. So now as many as 3 years have passed since Paxton filed suit in these 4 lawsuits, and there's no accountability in sight. I honestly don't understand what's taking so long. Not a single one of these 4 cases seems anywhere close to resolution. The continued inaction leaves communities exposed to more illegal pollution as they wait for accountability. Since the Attorney General filed those lawsuits, these same companies have released 639,000 more pounds of illegal pollution. Texans need the state's top enforcement official to stop playing with our health and safety and enforce the laws that we have. Now I'd like to turn it over to County Attorney Christian Menefee.
Thank you, Luke, and I'm very glad to be here today with the folks from Environment Texas, Representative Zwiener, as well as the folks at the Lone Star Chapter of the Sierra Club and Port Arthur Community Action Network. We're here today because the state of Texas has methodically and systematically worked to tie local officials' hands in holding corporate polluters accountable in wake of large-scale environmental events. Now, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but in Harris County, we have the city of Houston, which is widely regarded as the energy capital of the world. We have the Houston Ship Channel, which is the largest petrochemical complex in this country with more than 2,900 chemical facilities in the Harris County area. But in addition to having all of that industry concentrated in this one area, we also see a number of natural disasters that put us at risk. We've had 7 federally declared disasters since 2015, including Hurricane Harvey, which is one of the worst hurricane floods that we've seen in the Gulf Coast in our history. We have communities in our county, including Fifth Ward, the Manchester area and East Harris County, that have higher incidence of cancer than other areas of the state. We have communities with higher incidence of COPD, asthma, and other breathing and lung diseases. And so what we're dealing with here is an area that is highly susceptible to the impacts of pollution. And at the very same time, we have local governmental leaders who are taking steps to attempt to hold these folks accountable, and we have a state that is consistently undermining us. And I want to be clear. This is at every level of government. We heard the recording of former Speaker of the House, Dennis Bonnen, when he said he wanted the next legislative session to be the worst in the history of the state of Texas for cities and counties. That was the legislator. We've seen the Attorney General work time and time again, not just to take cases from us, but to get new laws passed to undermine us. And of course, we've seen the executive branch and the TCEQ refuse to hold folks accountable. In 2015, the legislator passed a law capping the damages that a local government can receive in these penalty cases at just over $2 million. In 2017, we saw, of course, HB 2533, which had two major impacts. One, it allowed the state of Texas to go in and file lawsuits in wake of these large-scale disasters like Chemco, like ITC, like Arkema, and take the case from the county if they file first. But in addition to that, it put in a mandatory 90-day notice period where we have to give notice to the state, and they can decide whether they want to take the case or not. And the main issue with that is since that law was passed in 2017, every single case that we have provided notice on, except for two, has been taken by the state of Texas. And in those two cases where we were allowed to pursue a penalty case, we believe that those were mistakes. They simply forgot to take the case from us within the notice period. And so what we're saying is, in addition to them taking the cases, it's not like the state is taking the case from the county and they're pursuing to hold these folks accountable to the fullest extent of law. Instead, we're saying a state that is unwilling to go after the statutory maximum for penalties of $25,000 per emissions event per day. In addition to all of this, in many cases, the county investigates whether there was malfeasance in an emissions event. The TCQ will come to us and ask us to investigate. And after we've invested our resources in investigating what went wrong, the state will then still take the penalty case from us. And why that's important is when there's benzene in the air, when there's smoke in the air, when there's hydrogen cyanide in the air, when there's been a major disaster or a fire and these communities are impacted, in Harris County, it's Harris County communities that are impacted. It's our schools that are forced to send students home. It's our neighbors who are forced to shelter in place. It's our communities that are being impacted. And when the state takes these cases away from Harris County, they don't just take it away from county government. They take it away from judges who are elected by the people of Harris County to ensure fairness and impartiality. They take it away from juries who are best positioned to determine what amount is necessary to hold these companies accountable when we have large-scale pollution events. And as we heard Luke mention, the settlements that the state is accepting for many of these large-scale emissions events, it's pennies on the dollar. We have seen case after case after case where the state of Texas has gone in and instead of seeking and obtaining the maximum statutory amount for penalties or anywhere near that, they settle for 3% of the maximum penalty, 4% of the maximum penalty, 7% of the maximum penalty, allowing these corporate polluters to get off with merely a slap on the wrist. And look, to be clear, we're not trying to end business in the state of Texas, and I'm not trying to end business in Harris County. I am merely talking about companies being held accountable for their malfeasance, for their mistakes, when it puts communities, when it puts people's life at risk. You know, out in the Fifth Ward area, you have a higher amount of concentrated facilities that is leading to worse health outcomes for those communities. If you go out in Manchester, you can see the facilities from the neighborhoods, and that's why they continuously have health issues in these areas. These people deserve relief. These people deserve accountability when mistakes are made, and local government is best positioned to make that happen. So what we're calling on from the Attorney General of Texas here today and from the TCEQ is stop taking cases from local government. Folks who have my offices for more than 60 years pursued these cases, and we're best positioned to hold these corporate polluters accountable when there are large-scale pollution events. We're calling on the TCEQ to seek the maximum penalties under the law. You know, don't take our cases, but if you're going to take them, actually fight to hold folks accountable and to ensure that they're properly disincentivized from this behavior in the future. And we're also calling on the state to change the law to not only raise the statutory maximum from $25,000 per emissions event per day to a higher amount, but also to remove the cap on recoveries that have been placed on local governments. Look, in order for local governments to be able to be incentivized to do this kind of work and to fight to protect these communities, we have to be able to hire lawyers who are going to be able to do the work, and that comes with ensuring that the penalties are not arbitrarily capped in a way that is merely intended to help business and to undermine local government. So again, I am glad to be here today to be able to press on these issues, but I'm not glad that we're in this situation. Time and time again, we've seen from our state leaders, from Governor Abbott to Attorney General Ken Paxton to the dominated, conservative-dominated state Senate and state House to the administrative agencies, including the TCEQ. Time and time again, we've seen that their intent is not to hold industry accountable, is not to fight for and protect communities, but instead is to back the folks who back them, and that is folks at the top rungs of industry. Look, I know folks at every single one of these companies who are in middle management or who are lower than that and who want their companies to do the right thing. So it's not a question of whether there are good people at these companies who want to ensure that everybody's playing by the rules. Instead, it is a few at the top of these organizations who are in collusion with politicians in order to tie government's hand and allow industry to run wild, not just in our region out in the Harris County Gulf Coast area, but throughout the entire state of Texas. It's wrong, it's harming local government, but more important, it's harming the everyday people who make our state and our county what it is. So with that, I will turn it back over to Luke, and I'm grateful to be here today.
Thanks so much, County Attorney. Now I'd like to turn it over to Representative Aaron Zwiener.
Thank you so much, Luke. I'm Representative Aaron Zwiener. I represent House District 45, Hayes and Blanco counties. Really grateful to be here with Environment Texas, Sierra Club, Public Citizen, and County Attorney Menefee. When we as members of the public do something dangerous, like run through a stop sign, we are at risk of getting a ticket, and getting a ticket that has a financial sting to us. And the reason that is there is so that we have a strong financial disincentive to not run a red light, to not speed, to not drive recklessly. We need the same type of structure actually functioning for our businesses that potentially cause air pollution for our communities. If they endanger our communities, they should also face a financial penalty, because that provides a strong disincentive to have actual proactive compliance. And that's really what we're talking about today, building a culture of compliance around clean air and clean water, things that every single Texan deserves and that we should be fighting to protect. So I'm really grateful for the county attorney's efforts to try and hold polluters accountable locally, and I'm also committed to continuing to fight to give our regulatory agencies the tools they need to be more efficient watchdogs for the people of Texas. We do have statutory penalties in Texas law. However, those penalties are capped in code at flat dollar amounts. And I know you as members of the community are seeing that what it costs you to live in everyday life has gone up, and that means the value of the dollar is less. So having penalties capped at $25,000, that penalty means less and less and less to these big industrial facilities every single day. So last session, I filed House Bill 1820 to try and give TCEQ the tools to build that proactive culture of compliance, to have a strong enough financial disincentive to keep polluters from polluting. That legislation would have doubled that maximum statutory penalty from $25,000 to $50,000. The number has not been upped since 2007. And in addition, that legislation would have permanently tied that maximum statutory penalty to inflation, so that as the value of the dollar changes, those penalties could go up over time and continue to hold those companies accountable, instead of having to come back to the legislature every 10 years and beg us to raise the penalties again. That's how we get to a place where TCEQ has the tools to be a good steward of our air and water. That's how we reward Texas businesses who prioritize the safety and well-being of their neighbors, instead of giving a disastrous disincentive to companies that cut corners and let toxins release that endanger the nearby communities. So unfortunately, that legislation did not make it over the finish line, but I am proud to say that it did get out of the House Committee on Environmental Regulation, and we have not had a bill of that scope get out of that committee in years. So I'm committed to coming back next session, continuing that fight, and working to make sure that we can hold polluters accountable and protect clean air and clean water for all Texans. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Cyrus Reed with the Sierra Club Lone Star Chapter. Luke and others, thanks. It seems like it's deja vu all over again. We're still facing large amounts of pollution illegally released along our Gulf Coast and throughout Texas, and we still have a failure of our main environmental agency, TCEQ, to take action, and apparently very slow action by our current AG. Back in 2009 and 2010, Sierra Club and Environment Texas used the Clean Air Act and the Citizen Enforcement Provision to issue notices of intent to sue Chevron, Shell, and Exxon for repeatedly violating the Clean Air Act and their state permits after our state agency failed to take action. We were able to settle 2 of those cases, and the third one we won a historic judgment. We later also took action against Pasadena Refining, and more recently we've been working with a number of environmental organizations and citizens and have settled 2 enforcement suits against gas processing plants in West Texas, west of Odessa. In all of this, our state enforcement apparatus, including the TCEQ and the AG, have failed our citizens. The reason we do these citizen enforcement suits is not because our organizations really enjoy doing this. We don't get any money out of that. It's to protect the frontline communities and to send a message to industry that they are not above the law. And we're hopeful by doing this that eventually TCEQ and the Attorney General will do their jobs. We have a chance, right? We have a chance now to actually fix this. And the reason I say that is because TCEQ, the main environmental agency, is going through a sunset review process. Just last month, we had hundreds of citizens, I think almost 200 Texas citizens, descended on the Capitol and told the sunset commissioners, elected officials, that TCEQ needs to do a better job regulating industry and enforcing the law. So today we're here really to ask for 2 things. First, Attorney General Ken Paxton, please do your job and take substantial and swift action against these repeat offenders. Valero, TPC, ITC, Exxon. Let's send a message to these industries that they're not above the law, and let's seek the maximum penalties possible. But we also call on the sunset commissioners and the legislature to give TCEQ the tools and the directive to actually enforce the law fully so communities are not decimated by pollution that is literally killing them. And there are many, many things we could be doing. We could end the affirmative defense that industry uses to get away with polluting. We could, as Representative Zwiener said, substantially increase fines, speciate pollution, recover the economic benefit of noncompliance so companies don't actually gain economically by polluting our communities. And we need to revise our broken compliance history where companies that repeatedly violate the law are given a good or average compliance history record and are not fully enforced against. I'm going to turn it over now to actually one of the community members who's been impacted by pollution, John Beard, if you'd like to come forward and say a few words.
Good morning. My name is John Beard. I'm from Port Arthur, Texas, and I'm also the founder and CEO of an environmental justice, social justice organization, the Port Arthur Community Action Network. And I'm here today to serve notice to the Attorney General that the clock is running on him to do something. In May of 2019, he intervened in a suit that we had against Valero's refinery in Port Arthur for over 600 air quality violations dating from 2014 to 2019. Because of these violations, many people in my community suffer. For instance, Port Arthur has twice the state and national average for not just cancer, but heart, lung, and kidney disease. Some of the worst air quality in the entire state of Texas is found in the Beaumont-Port Arthur region. And Valero is a major contributor to that. We need Valero to stop polluting. In the time since the Attorney General took over this case, nothing has been done. But we have to breathe every day. And we cannot continue to afford to wait on him for whatever reason he's reluctant to do something, to act, and to take action. Not only is Valero a company involved in Southeast Texas, but also TPC. And in the most rarest of instances, the TCEQ remanded that case to the Attorney General rather than the ED of the TCEQ. So we have a problem in Southeast Texas with air quality. We have a problem with the health of our people and the health of the community. And the Attorney General must do something. So, Attorney General, the clock is running. But we're not going to wait forever. And we're going to come back for Valero. And when we come for Valero, we're not just coming for them, we're coming for you too. You've been served the notice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. And thank you for all of our speakers today for joining us. And that's it for today. Thanks so much. And then for our speakers and everyone, actually, could we do you want to do a group shot? Or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Would it be better right here or?